Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 2, Unit 4.11 Notes, Day 1. Today we're going to be talking about the applications of quadratic equations. Our learning target today is to be able to solve quadratic equations involving the falling object formula. So here's our falling objects formula where h equals negative 16t squared plus vt plus s. Now, don't think that this is something that Miss Carranza and I just made up. It's science. No, for real, it is. This is the formula for a falling object. Now, each of these numbers means something. The negative 16t squared, well, something is falling, right? And we learned about the patterns and our graphs, but that negative 16, what that stands for, that is the force of gravity. Okay? The V times T, well, the V, that stands for the velocity or the speed. Okay? And then our last guy, that S, that is our starting height. If something's falling, it's got to start from a certain height, right? Okay, so that's 3 of the variables. And then the other things that you see the h. The h equals the height. And then the t is time. And normally when we're talking about time, we're talking about seconds. Okay? So when we're doing these equations, those are the 3 things we got to look for. We got to look at the force of gravity, we got to look at the velocity, the speed, and then the starting height. So let's go ahead and look at example number 1. It says that a ball is launched from a platform with an initial velocity of 32 feet per second. If you look at the equation, there it is. The height in feet of the ball, h, t seconds after it's released, is given by the quadratic equation h equals negative 16t squared plus 32t plus 20. Now, the first thing they want us to do is to sketch a graph of the scenario. So I know that we've got a platform, so I'm just going to draw a little platform right here. And I don't know what, oh, that platform looks weird. I'm going to do it again. So here we go. Take 2, Mr. Grice. So here's my platform. Now, they're not saying what is launching the ball, but we'll just make it a basketball. So this ball is launched and this goes up. Guess what? It's going to fall down, right? Okay, so that's my little graph. We need to identify the starting height of the ball and the velocity at which it was launched. Well, we already know the velocity. They tell us what the velocity is. The velocity was the 32 feet per second, okay? So I'm going to write that off to the side, that the velocity equals 32 feet per second. But now the other thing that we got to find is we got to find the initial height. So what's the height? How high was it when it started? Well, in these problems, they're either going to tell us what the height is, or they're going to tell us the time. So they didn't tell me the height. They said, identify the height. So if they didn't identify the height, they told me the speed or the time. But they didn't give me the time. Well, that's because no time is passed yet. So if no time is passed, our time is 0, and we're going to find the height. So what we do is we plug in 0 for t. So I'm plugging in 0, I'm plugging in 0, 32 times 0 is 0, 0 squared and negative 16 times 0 is 0. So we get that h equals 20. So my height is 20 feet. our velocity, we got the velocity from the equation, and then we plugged in 0 to find the height. All right, how long does it take for the ball to reach its maximum height? Well, the maximum height is going to be right here. Sorry, my graph isn't perfect, in the middle. And we know that in the middle is the vertex, okay? So we need to find the vertex. And if we're finding the vertex, that means we're going to use h equals the opposite of b over 2 times a, okay? So just real quick, I'm going to write down that this was 20 feet is where we started. All right, so to find the vertex, we need to use that formula. H equals negative 16t squared plus 32t plus 20. So you know what your A, B, and C are. Now I'm going to take the opposite of B, so it's negative 32 divided by 2 times A, which is negative 16. Okay? So the top stays the same at negative 32, and 2 times negative 16 is negative 32. And when we divide that out, hopefully you're not using a calculator, you get 1. So how long does it take for the ball to reach its maximum height? Well, it takes 1, and we're talking about second. Okay, so I know that right here, sorry, this is now 1 second to get to that high point. But our next question is, how long will it take to hit the ground? So remember, they either tell us the h or they tell us the t. So how long, they don't know how long it's going to take, but that means they must have told me height. Well, what's the height of the keyword ground? Well, the height of the ground is 0. So I would use 0 and plug in to the rest of the equation. Plus 32t plus 20. So there's 2 different ways you can do this. You can plug into the quadratic formula, or we can factor. Okay, we always check, is there a GCF? And there is. I can take out a negative, but I can also take out a 4. So I have 0 equals negative 4 out front, and then I have 4t squared minus 8t minus 5. And then we would treat this like any other time we factor, where we're trying to find what numbers multiply to get to negative 20 and add to get to negative 8. So the factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. The only way to get there is with 2 and 10. And if the 10 is negative, it works, and it works. So we're going to split that middle term. So we get 4t squared plus 2t minus 10t minus 5. I'm going to split that up and take the GCF out of the first group, which is a 2 and a t. The 2t comes out front, and we're left with 2t plus 1. Now looking at the back, I can take out a negative 5. And then we're left with 2t plus 1. And I know I did it right because these match. Okay? So as I start pulling everything together, we have our GCF that we took out, the 2t plus 1, and the 2t minus 5. Now great, we factored it, but I'm solving, so everything with a variable I said equal to 0. So to solve, we would subtract 1 and divide by 2. To solve, I would add 5 and divide by 2. Now, we're talking about time. So these would be seconds right now. Can I have negative 1/2 second? Can you go back in time? Do you have a 1988 DeLorean with a flux capacitor? Like in Back to the Future? I don't think so. So our answer is going to be the 5/2, and just remember, I want to know how many seconds. We wouldn't say, oh, it's 5/2 seconds. No, you would say that the time it took was 2.5 seconds. And there we go. That's our final answer. Okay? All right, next one. So an object is thrown upward from a building. The height in h feet of the object in t seconds after it is released is given by the quadratic equation h equals negative 16t squared plus 36t plus 36. So I forgot to write this in the other one, but you can say that we know that h is feet and t, our time, is seconds. Okay? So this time we're on a building. Okay, so here we go. We're on our building. Here we go. It's got some windows in it. Man, aren't I a great drawer? And then we have an object that is thrown. So I'm just assuming that somebody is throwing it. And we'll pretend that it's a football this time just to mix things up. I don't really have brown. Okay, it's going to be a tennis ball. So here's the tennis ball. And it goes whoosh, and the same thing. Comes down and hits the ground. Okay? So identify the starting height of the object and the velocity at which it was thrown. Well, velocity, remember that the velocity is this guy right here. So the velocity equals 36 feet per second. So we need to find the height. Okay, I know this is where my final answer is going to go right here. So to find the height, remember that that is the starting time. So I don't know the height, but I know that no time has passed. So we get h equals negative 16t squared plus 36 times t plus 36. We're plugging in 0 again, and all that cancels out. So we get that h equals 36. So our original height is 36 feet. Okay? So I know that this building is 36 feet tall, or the initial height was 36. Okay, it doesn't have to be that there's a person on top of it. Okay, but 36 is the height of the ball when it was thrown. Okay, now how long does it take for the object to reach its maximum height? So once again, to get to this the highest point that it gets at, that's the vertex. Okay, so we need to do the opposite of B over 2 times A. So I'm just going to rewrite the equation, the h equals the negative 16t squared plus 36t plus 36. We've got our A, B, and C. So x equals the opposite of b, so negative 36 times 2 times negative 16. So on the top we have negative 36, and 2 times 16 is negative 32. Okay, so when you divide that out, negative 36 divided by negative 32, it doesn't come out all nice and pretty. It's well, kind of, but 1.125. So we get 1.125. Anytime we're talking about time, we always go to 2 decimals, so that means we would round it. 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So x is approximately, we would say that it's 1.3 seconds. If it's asking for the exact answer, we would just leave it as 1.125. Okay? And then D, the last one, how long would it take to hit the ground? Remember, when they're telling us the ground, that is a height of 0, and I do not know the time. So 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 36t plus 36. Once again, you can choose if you want to do the quadratic formula, the x equals the opposite of b, all plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a, or you can factor. I'm a fan of factoring. So I'm going to take out a negative 4 because that's what they all have in common. So 0 equals negative 4. And then we have 4t squared minus 9t minus 9. And then I need to check what numbers multiply to get to negative 36 and add to get to negative 9. There are a lot of factors of 36. 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. So what's the combination that gets us to negative 9? And that's going to be 12, 3 and 12. So 3 and negative 12 gets us to 9, and 3 times negative 12 gets us to negative 36. Okay, so we're going to split that middle term, 4t squared plus 3t minus 12t minus 9, and then factor. So go ahead and pause the video and factor. So we should have gotten that 0 equals negative 4 times 4t plus 3 times t minus 3. And just remember, we're not done because we are solving. So 4t plus 3 equals 0, and then t minus 3 equals 0. So I would subtract the 3 and divide by 4. And on the right side, I would just add 3 to both sides. So remember that t is time. Can we have negative time? No, we can't. Time can only be positive. So our time that it took for it to reach the ground was 3 seconds. And there you go. Well, guys, that's it for Algebra 2, Unit 4.11 Notes, Day 1. If you have any questions, please come see Ms. Carranza or myself. We would love to help you out. Otherwise, your homework is 4.11 practice. All right. Good luck, guys. This is Mr. Grice signing off. Thanks for watching.